All right, welcome back to the Branding Laboratory. I am Devo, your host, and today we are going to be stepping into the lab to uncover the essence of leadership and the human stories that shape the extraordinary businesses of the people that I feature on this show. And as in the lab, we don't just talk about what people do, we dive into who they are. I love exploring the rabbit hole of getting to know somebody and how they show up in the world. And that includes the intersection of both the personal and our professional lives. Because as your brand isn't just what you sell, it's how you show up in the world. And today's guest is Nicole Grinnell. She is a three-time business owner. She is a podcasting evangelist, so I'm excited about that. And she is the founder of Mic'd Up Booking. And I met her through a copious variety of channels and just loved her energy and her insights. And she's no stranger to hard work or reinvention. So it's going to be a really cool conversation. Her story spans several generations of growing up in a family business, climbing the corporate ladder, and ultimately creating a life and a business that really aligns with her connections and her balance and her sense of service. So it's going to be a fun conversation towards that end. And we're going to break down I really want to understand the purpose behind what she does in her life and the lessons that she's learned and her unique approach to blending entrepreneurship with a family life. She's a mother. And hopefully by the end of this episode, you'll walk away with not only business insights, but a better understanding of how to bring your whole self, based upon Nicole's feedback, into your work and lead with genuine authenticity. So I am excited to welcome Nicole to the show. And where is she? Let me just bring her in here. Nicole, are you joining me? Hello, Nicole.
Hello.
Welcome to the Brand Laboratory.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I'm excited to have this conversation with you. As I was talking about, you couldn't hear. I wish Zoom would put the green room so that you could actually hear what I say, because I don't want you to have to listen to it, but I do want you to listen to it. But anyway, I said some really nice things about you. The whole point of this show today is really just to get to know who you are. I want to understand your style of leadership. You've spanned a couple of different ways from you're a mother, you're an entrepreneur, you grew up in a family business, you're a three-time business owner, you're a podcasting evangelist. There's a lots of different layers to you. And the whole point is to get to know who you are and then share that with my audience so that they might glean some tidbits of information so that they can better show up in the world. Anyhow, you ready to do this and get real with me?
Yeah, I love it. This sounds great. This is exciting.
So the first piece I really want to start with is your personal story and just your personal side of things growing up in a family business. Are there any particular memories or lessons that, and this is like a therapy session here, that have really stuck with you throughout the trajectory of your career?
Yeah, I think growing up in a family business, I would describe it like this. You don't really enjoy it while you're in it.
Hmm.
And it's somewhat of your normal, so you don't know that much. And then when you get out of it, you're, wow, that was like a lot of work. But I think there's a perspective that you come out of seeing. I tell people a lot, I feel like I was seeing the perspectives of my parents who were owning and running what they had was a medical lab. And hearing their employee drama, their patient drama, their client drama, whatever that is, and the struggles that they went through there. And then you're also working alongside your parents' employees and you're hearing their needs, what they're struggling with, what they would like. And so you're in this middle, and as a child, they're overlooked that you're even there, if that makes sense, right? And
Hmm.
so you're absorbing it and hearing a lot of different perspectives, almost being like a blind focus group of hearing everything that's going on and coming out with your own reality of how you would want your business to run and how
Mm.
you would want to treat people. So it's a very unique experience. I think it has definitely given me a leg up in how I was as an employee because I truly could empathize with the leaders that I was supporting and knowing that when you don't have just your perspective and you can know what it feels like to be in their shoes, there's some empathy that goes in and there's just a different work ethic that comes out of that.
Sure. In terms of so how long into your adult life did you do this?
Yeah, they opened the business when I was 10 and started then. And then I worked all through high school, college area, and then I went into corporate before I started my own business. Yeah.
So you're now CEO of Mic'd Up Podcasting, and then before this in the corporate life, you were doing what?
I was an executive assistant, so I was supporting C levels in various different corporations.
And what about working in the corporate world was the impetus to leave that space and start your own business?
Yeah, so it really wasn't anything against corporate. There's a lot that I really enjoy about it, and I love being an executive assistant and supporting in that capacity. It was really more about where I was personally, in that I had children. Once I had children, I did decide to stay at home. I really thought my executive assistant days were over. I was very fortunate to work for an executive that allowed me to work around my children's schedules. I was home for summers. He was very flexible, which, if you are an EA, that is extremely rare. It's typically like a 24/7 on-call job. And he was retiring. And so I thought that gig is probably never going to happen again. And at that time, this virtual assistant, there was new technology coming out, people could work remotely. And I thought maybe I'll be a virtual assistant. And that's what I'll transition into, and I'll have that flexibility. But what I found very soon after was, oh, this was a huge need for business owners that I had tapped into and found. And that's where I flipped the script and decided to open a company that was really supporting business owners in different ways, as opposed to just being a virtual assistant myself.
So this was the podcasting business that you're doing now.
Yeah, so I have a podcasting and a staffing business.
Got
Staffing
it.
came first. Yeah.
So does either one take precedent over the other in terms of your time and energy and resources, or are you able to load balance them both?
Yeah, I would say it's probably a 60-40 split, mainly in staffing.
Staffing, got it.
The podcast really, again, kind of, we're just so solution oriented. We had business owners coming to us and saying, hey, I need to get more awareness. I want to be able to bring education. I need to use marketing efforts. And we found podcasts to be an amazing tool of that. And that's where the spinoff of Mic'd Up came to be. And we've had that company now for about 3 years, but have been doing it for 8.
So just tell me a little bit about in a nutshell. So the staffing agency, do you specialize in something in particular?
Yeah, so we're unique in staffing. We really do talent at all levels. So our bread and butter is really that fractional space. So whatever business owners are needing, whether it's admin, bookkeeping, social media, call center, anything that they need back of the house, but done fractionally. And we bring that in. Everyone's US based. It still looks and feels like a team member, but we wanted to give business owners that flexibility all the way to traditional direct hire. So every level and stage of talent needs is what we're able to provide.
So I'm sorry, you said also the traditional hire model is part of what you do?
Correct. Yes.
So is there, sorry, I'd want to better understand it so people who are listening can maybe benefit from this. So in terms of the fractional piece first, is there an incubation period where you have to be in a fractional role and then vetted, if you will, or do companies come to you and say, I'm looking for a full-time position? So you're a staffing agency as well as a fractional temp agency almost, right?
Yeah, so fractional meaning it still is a full-time, or I should say a committed relationship, but it's just at a lower level. So you may say to me, hey, I've got some admin tasks that I really need to delegate, but it's probably only 10 hours a week. We would match you and still recruit like you would a traditional employee
Mm.
for a 10-hour-a-week assistant, but you're not paying for that full time. These are just different service lines. So you also may come to me and say, hey, things are doing great. I want to hire a business development manager and they're going to be a full-time employee. Can you recruit that for me? That's also something we can do. So it's really more figuring out what stage. In fact, my call after you is a client that's, hey, I need a accounting manager. I'm not sure if I should go fractional or I should bring them in. I'd like to brainstorm with you on that. And so we'll walk through how much time is this? What's your budget? What are the ideals and growth trajectory of this? And we will decide which model to go from there.
Got it. So when you're fractional, you're still contract. Is that sort of correct? And then,
Correct.
but then, so you have that model, and then you also have the full-time hiring where you're actually going out and finding somebody. Okay, cool. And then
Correct.
where's the just high level again podcast? Where's the podcast piece fit into this? You had some experience with podcasting. You saw the writing on the wall, so you jumped into that space. And so, what specifically do you do in that world for the podcasting?
Yeah, so along the way, even when we were doing social media, we had so many clients that were like, I don't have a $10,000 ad spend, right? Like, how do I get awareness on what I do? We worked with a lot of coaches, consultants, people that really wanted to bring their specific niche and get that awareness out. So we started getting people booked on podcasts. Then I started doing that and seeing how this was an amazing ROI. And so we really developed Mic'd Up, which truly gets business owners or coaches or individuals or even department heads within companies on podcasts. And then we teach them how to utilize that for marketing efforts, networking, etc.
So you're basically an agency that, like a PR agency. So you're a PR booking
Essentially.
agency for podcasts. Brilliant.
Correct.
Okay, cool. I understand that. Speaking from experience, and I've been doing podcasting now for over 5 years, valuable model, valuable tool, invaluable asset to be able to say. But one of the things that I have found, and I'm not picking at this, but one of the things I have found, and I just maybe not working with the right agency, is that the quality of the shows from the agency that I worked with, and I've worked with three of them now, they really were not up to my standards. And I'm not sure if that's because I have high podcasting standards and my show is
Mhm.
what it is. Um, but I found that a lot of the shows that I went on, sorry, no offense, people, they were very amateurish and not very well run, not very well coordinated, not very well communicated. And so I just moved away from that model. So tell me a little bit about your business and what makes it unique and why myself or any of my other high level entrepreneurs would want to work with that.
So I think it's twofold. First and foremost, like we have a different philosophy around podcasting. For us, it is online networking. And what I know as a business owner is our time is very limited. And what I
Okay.
was seeing with my own sales efforts is I may go to a networking event, maybe I'm introduced to someone, and maybe there's 1% of people in there that I actually connect with or I could actually serve. And what I found with podcasting was this was a way for me to not only get on and tell my story and tell what we do and educate people on our services, but I was now connecting with the host. And so inevitably, when that record light was going off, the host would be like, "Man, I know so many people who could really use this service. Tell me more about it. Or would you like to set up a referral partnership? Or can I introduce you to some people?" And so I had this captured audience because we're obviously looking for shows that fit what I'm hoping to talk about. So we're already curating my audience. And the hosts were the key to these connections. I can't tell you how many multi six-figure relationships were coming out of hosts connecting me with people that were either on their show, were clients of theirs, were in their own network, or their sphere of influence, that we now had bonded through this connection and this conversation, and they wanted to connect me.
Hmm.
I can't say that I would have had the same results if I just met this person at a coffee mixer and we exchanged business cards and said hello and I'm in staffing and that's the end of it, right?
Hmm.
They had fallen in love, so to speak, with my story and the way I serve people and now wanted to connect me. So that was first and foremost. I get that question a lot on like the quality of show. Again, back to my philosophy is I'm wanting connections. I don't need to be on Joe Rogan, although that would be great. I wouldn't turn it down. But really, what I'm trying to do is connect with people that can put me in front of people that need my service.
Hmm.
So, our way of handling that is we absolutely are bringing shows that are highly produced. We work with a lot of other PR agencies and production companies that are producing shows because we're on the flip side, we're bringing the guests, we're not producing shows. And we want to make sure that they're well promoted, that they have schedulers, and we want to make that experience very easy for our clients, and we handle that. That's first and foremost. Having said that, the number one way it doesn't go well for our clients is when they refuse shows because they feel like they're too small. Some of the smallest shows I have done have been my best connectors because they are so willing and eager to get their influence out there and they truly have gone into it with a mission driven purpose of connecting and they're so willing to give that. Some of my higher production shows I'm in and out, they don't want to talk, they're just putting me on the air and we're done. Still great things, still great publicity, but I'm not getting the same return on that connection.
100%. And please notice that I did not say anything other than quality. I actually
Mhm.
prefer smaller shows
Yep.
because I can have more deeper, meaningful conversations. I was more concerned with like people, some of the hosts didn't even have microphones, or there was no
Yep.
post-production process, or it was just like going off a list of questions without any conversation. And I know that's my personal preference and all, but totally with you on that space.
Yep.
Fantastic success. You're a serial entrepreneur. Love that. That's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. I want to talk a little bit more about you as an individual. And so you're a CEO, two businesses, you're a mom, you're a partner, all these different things. I always interested because I'm a father. I'm always interested what people would say about me if I wasn't in the room. But I
Mhm.
was just thinking about this earlier today because I was having a conversation with somebody, and so this is just like off the top of my head. Somebody asked me what my kids would say about me if they had a conversation. I was like, that's a really good question because who knows you better than your kids, right?
Yep.
What would your kids say about mom, the CEO, entrepreneur, executive, leader of this, leader of that? What would your kids say about you?
They probably would be more like if you named off all those titles, they'd be like, she's just goofy and weird in real life. So that doesn't really fit the mom that we know. I think that they see that we work hard. We're a very like work hard, play hard family. We joke like everybody earns their keep, but we really reward that. And I think they see that balance in my own life. One thing I saw from just growing up in the environment that I did was I wanted to have more balance. And that's very important to me. I am like a workaholic in my DNA. I remember going to New York City for the first time and seeing everyone working at 3 a.m. and that felt like a dream to me. So that is in my DNA. So it's very hard and I have to be very disciplined to not be that person. So I think they would say she's quirky, she's funny, she works hard, she probably drives too fast. These are all things that I've heard them say. But I think overall, they probably see that I try very hard to balance everything and really be there for them.
You use that word quite a few times, balance. And I'm wondering, is it balance or freedom? And I try to understand that because I don't know that you're ever going to have balance. This is just my perspective on it.
Mhm.
This whole idea of work-life balance, it's a really tenuous struggle because there are times when you really have to pour in on things, right? Whether you're launching a new product, whether you're trying to scale your brand, whether you're traveling a lot. So this whole idea around balance for me is like, I don't know if it's a misnomer, right? And
Mhm.
I'm not disagreeing with you because it's just my personal
Oh,
perspective.
yeah.
I see it more as freedom, the autonomy and the ability to allocate, jump in, jump out as you please. In your sense of an entrepreneur, and I'm always fascinated by this whole idea of why people become entrepreneurs. It's literally one of the most compelling questions I get from people. Why did you become an entrepreneur, and what does freedom mean to you in that sense?
So back to what I was saying with me being technically like a workaholic, and that's where like I default to. I use the word balance. I probably should be using the word discipline because for
Mm,
me, I do have that desire. Like I have that desire to truly like work, take everything to the next level. I have ideas coming out of my head. It is discipline for me to not do those things and be present for my kids and my family
mm,
and my friends and family. So I did not get into it for like freedom and I don't, I want to be able to be my own boss. That's not like a desire of mine. I'd work 24/7. I love it. I truly love it. So for me, it's more going, okay, but this has to be my priority, whatever stage of life I'm at in that, and balancing that. How can I still have a career and fulfillment while also being present for my number one priority, which is my kids and my family?
mm.
So that's where my balance comes in. My mind doesn't go to, I want to be on the beach. And if I want to take off Friday, that's not like my thing. My thing is, how can I still work and feel fulfilled in that, but also be disciplined enough to make sure that these priorities are coming first. And I know that has a trade-off. It has a trade-off in how fast I've been able to grow. It has a trade-off financially. I will be honest, I'm in a season right now where I'm downsizing that. I'm getting ready to send two kids off to college. We're getting ready to move. My family needs me, and I have to transition even further out of
Mhm.
what I'm doing professionally. So that for me is my balance and my discipline.
Yeah, so just clarification for me, I wholeheartedly agree with what you just said. Freedom for me does not mean having the ability to go to the beach and drink
Yeah.
martinis and bonbons. Freedom for me is the ability to make the choices of the types of clients I want to work with,
Mm,
the opportunities that I want to expose myself to, or the opportunities that I want to turn away, etc. So for me, that's
I
what I
love
meant by
that.
that whole idea of freedom. I think it's this sort of this misnomer. Again, a lot of people, I had a brother of mine, it's crazy to me. You have the life, man. You sit at home all day long, you go to work. I was like, bro, I would literally work like 16 hours a day sometimes, man. And I sometimes I don't. But as an entrepreneur, man, we are our own Swiss Army knives and our own worst enemies because if we don't have the discipline like you're just talking about, we can really be chasing squirrels all day long. And it's not about, for me, this freedom, it's not about being an entrepreneur because I don't want to go to work every day. It's because I love having the choice and the freedoms to make the choices when I want to work, how I want to work, who I want to work with. So that's what entrepreneurial does for me. In terms of your, I'm getting off target here, but in terms of your purpose, if you will, like why you became an entrepreneur. When you look back at your father's and your mother's trajectory working in the business, and then you were in the corporate world for a little while, what was that epiphany, I guess that shift, if you will, that was like, okay, I see a gap or I have an inspiration that kind of took you from here to here where you are now?
I'd love to tell you that it was like some well thought out plan, but it was truly just I was getting too much work for myself. I started thinking I'll be a virtual assistant. I had one client that spun to two to three really quickly. Now all of a sudden I had eight clients in front of me. I was literally being a virtual assistant for eight different people, working like crazy. And I was like, that's where kind of the light bulb went off. And I was like, oh, this is not out there.
Mm,
And really, what was not out there was you would see virtual assistants, but it was primarily overseas. It was pretty bullet pointed at what they would do. And what wasn't out there is really building your back office in a fractional space. So now I had business owners going, could you handle some social media for me? Would you mind answering phone calls for me? And so it was like, oh, that's what they need. They need to be able to build this out. And so that was the light bulb. It really was organic. I didn't go out to even set out to do a company. But that was like, okay, this is a need. We can fill it. I really started calling on so many of my own girlfriends that were former accountants, former marketing managers that were now also at home. And there wasn't a space for them to get into the workplace because that model just wasn't out there. And so
mm.
that's really where the snowball came. And then it was like, wow, I can get my friends jobs and I can spend my time finding clients. And so it just evolved from there.
Again, epiphany is an epiphany. So you saw a market gap, you jumped on it, you had burnout, you saw what it was doing to your life and the trajectory it was taking on, and you seized an opportunity and created something. So for me, that is still that light bulb moment, if you will. In terms of managing multiple businesses, because I also do the same thing, I'm always fascinated. I'm a single father. I have two teenage daughters. I'm always fascinated with this whole idea of parenting at home and the lessons that you teach your children and whatever it is that you're trying to teach them, and every parent is different, and then how you show up in your professional life. Where are the intersections that you see how you mother versus how you lead in business?
Ooh, okay. Explain that last part of that question a little more, what you mean.
I'm having this conversation right now with my partner. She has children, I have children, and we have different parenting styles, different parenting values. And that doesn't make it bad, worse, or anything else. It just means we have different styles. So we've got to make sure that we have some alignment so there is like a cohesion going on, right? So I started thinking about how do I parent? How do I show up as a parent? And I started realizing that I'm a very structured, accountability, personal responsibility type of individual. And I also looked at my business and I'm like, that's how I coach my clients. Like, we should be responsible for ourselves and show up, and we should be loyal, and we should be honest, and we should have integrity. And so I started seeing all these unique parallels between how I live my life on a personal level, how I parent, how I live my life, how I show up for my friends, is very similar to how I show up in my business. I believe in honesty. I believe in integrity. I believe in getting the job done. I believe in under promising and over delivering. I believe in personal accountability and responsibility. And those are very directly correlated and connected with how I live my life and how I raise my kids. So I'm wondering the question, sorry, that was really long winded. If you
No.
had to reflect for a minute how you show up on a personal level and how you raise your children and how you parent, what are the parallels between that and how you run your business and how you're a leader and how you're a CEO?
I think the biggest, you touched on a lot of things that I would agree with, but even just definitely the personal responsibility. Like I said, like we joke, like everyone earns their keep around here, right? There's no free rides. Like we all work, but we're also really rewarded. And I watched, oh, I'm totally blanking. I do this every time I'm on a podcast, but
I'm the
Howard,
worst reference, by the
oh
way.
yeah,
I'm
I'm
just
like,
saying,
Howard.
yeah.
I'm really into them. I don't read a lot, but I love watching documentaries, and I'm really into masterclass series right now.
Uh-huh, yeah,
And I
yeah.
watched Howard Schultz, and he kept saying success is better shared. He loved that. And I loved that because I truly believe that. And I think that's probably how we are with our kids is you're going to see mom and dad work hard. You're going to pitch in and help them work hard, but we're also really going to enjoy great times together. And I think that's probably something that I really try to translate in my leadership as well. Also, a big thing to me is I'm going to work right alongside of you. In fact, yesterday I had a call with one of our team members and she was talking about just the org chart. And I said, I'm really bad at having org charts because I view us all such as a team. And I
Mm,
think that's the same for a family, right? Like I'm not looking at it like there's dad, there's mom, there's children. I understand there is a structure in that. And I understand there's a structure in the business. But at the end of the day, if one team member is down, we're all going to jump in and help, right?
mm.
If a family member is down, if a family member is being celebrated, whatever that is. So I don't want to get into a hierarchy field because if you need help, I'm going to walk alongside you and help you. If you've done something great, I'm going to walk alongside and praise you. And that's probably very similar to how I am in parenting as well.
Thank you for saying that. All hands on deck as needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think for me, and if I may just for a second, one of the things that I've always told my children is be self-aware and read the room. If you see a need,
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
walk through the kitchen and you see there's a sink full of dishes, don't just keep walking, rolling right on through because somebody at some point is going to have to do those. And I'd rather that you take
Yep.
the impetus to do that or whatever it is. And I look at the same way as I show up in business. If you have something that needs to be done, show up and do it. Be voluntarily needed. Show up, add value to. For me, it's always like, how can you always add value in every situation? Always be a producer instead of a consumer. That's what I tell my kids. That's my mantra. Be a producer. Don't just be a consumer. I want to
Yeah.
switch gears because we're on a podcast right now, and I believe wholeheartedly in the power of podcasting. It has helped me build connections all over the world. In fact, my mastermind is entirely based upon individuals who I really connected with, like yourself, and you're going to get an
Mhm.
invitation for this after the show, to join my mastermind community. It has opened doors, it has built relationships. I have gone on retreats with individuals. In fact, the person coming on after the show today is a retreat I just attended of his back in October. So it's really an unkept secret, and you talk about that a lot, this unkept secret of passive networking, and I see it as relationship building. Can you talk a little bit about what you mean by this unkept secret of passive networking as you see it?
Yeah, so I think that one thing that I saw from my own standpoint, even without dealing with clients, was I had a hard time translating through traditional marketing efforts. I'm thinking digital media, print media, whatever. It was hard for me to say what I could do for a business owner in print, that if I sat down with someone and really walked them through it, it was like an instant conversion,
Mhm.
right? And I was like, okay, what is that gap? And for me, it was really giving them my story, what we do, listening to them, providing value. And that was where I saw that conversion. So then it was like, how do I amplify that? How do I get in front of more audiences, more people that are needing this service without spending my entire day running across to chamber events and networking and businesses groups, right? Like that just wasn't going to be realistic for me. And that's where we developed our system and what we coach our clients on in making those connections. So, first and foremost is what we call that green room ROI, which is really where we're going in. And look, we're not selfish, right? So, I want to also be asking the host, tell me more about your business. It's been about me, right? But who could I refer to you? And then really being able to say, now you've heard what I do and my story. Is there anyone that you feel like is in your network? And having those really warm introductions from someone that the potential client knows, or being able to use these shows to reach out to people that maybe you did meet in real life and say, hey, I know we had coffee and it was so great and you were really struggling with delegating. This is a show I was on recently and I talked about the top 5 ways to delegate for business owners. Now they're
Mm.
listening to that in their own time. They're seeing it on a publication of sorts. And so to me, it was just like, okay, as business owners, we have limited time, we have limited money, and we're trying to get our message out there. We're trying to connect with people. And this just felt like the best one-stop shop to solve so many problems that it literally, again, to those light bulb moments, I look around, I'm like, why is everyone not doing this? And that's really how we decided to launch Mic'd Up and really take it to the next level.
So one of the things that I've always struggled with, and I feel like I've started to figure this recipe out, is the distribution of the show. So the show is great. We have good conversation. You and I are going to have a fantastic connection here, which we already have, and because we've talked before, you've already dropped some nuggets and some insights. But now I want to get this show into a larger audience. What are some insights that you tell your people, your clients, on how to get a larger set of eyeballs on the show?
Newsletters have been huge for us, and we really try to coach our clients on that, is building that newsletter distribution. I can't tell you how many just like literally I say this all the time, dollars are in your inbox. They're in your calendar. If you are not putting every person and every appointment that you have met with in that week, month into your newsletter list and continuing to be in front of them and having podcasts to routinely send out as information and send, whether it's clips or reels or you want to send the full show links, but getting that out and having that in people's inbox is huge. It is huge. Obviously, we encourage resharing those on other networks, also diving into that host network and really commenting on that, connecting with other people that you see there. So there's so many ways, but it just takes time and coaching for people to really see ways that you can start growing your network. I really started focusing on this about 1 to 2 years ago, just via LinkedIn, which is where most of my clients live. And we're now over, my personal page is over 10,000 followers by just doing simple steps of connecting with hosts, adding people to my LinkedIn that are either clients or people I've met with, pushing out shows and having people connect with me. So there are a lot of ways that are economical, but it just takes the time and the diligence to really do them.
So I love the connect with everybody social. It's something I asked Marielle. I don't know if you've interacted with Marielle. She's my producer, to go out and do this on social networks, just to get connected with people. And I think that's a understated thing that most people don't take the time to do. Social media in of itself, for me, I think people have this sort of like, it's like this concept of build it and they will come. I'm just going to show up and post and then everyone's going to see it. But it's really not the case. And what I'm hearing you say is like you do have to be very strategic and very proactive. And there's a process to it. So marry the process and don't just expect results overnight. I didn't expect there was some magic green pill for it, but I was just curious of your insight. What is one of the most surprising for you in terms of the types of connections or opportunity that's come from podcasting for you?
So I think probably the coolest
Besides
thing,
being on the Branding Laboratory.
obviously, yeah, number one. I think the biggest thing is when I first started, and we see clients do this too, it's, oh, you're in staffing, you should go on staffing only podcast.
Mm.
But really being able to show the full gamut of your personality, your story, not just your business. So some of my like biggest connections have been on nothing to do with my business, like literally nothing. Like we may even talked about it just post show. I did one that was totally on just giving back, business owners that gave back. And we talked about a charity that we focus on and how we've implemented that in our business model. And it is all about just encouraging people to give back. And he has been the best connector for me, truly. And that's something that sometimes we'll see clients and they're like, I don't, that has nothing to do with staffing. I don't want to get on that show. And it's no, you're giving a full picture of who you are, right?
Yeah.
And people who are listening to podcasts are going to identify and pick up on different things. And that's what they're going to connect with to want to work
Yeah.
with you.
That's the whole point of this show. So
The whole
you
point. Yeah.
literally the entire ecosystem of the show is centered on getting to know who you are as an individual. And because this is what I tell every one of my clients and anybody I work with, and you'll see this on social media, is how you show up in the world defines who you are and what you believe in. And those are the people that are going to latch onto that and hear that. And those are the people that you want to connect with. It's not everybody else. It's the people who drink the same Kool-Aid, who need the same solution you offer, who may philosophically be touched or emotionally on that connection that you talked about or whatever it is. So that's that is literally the very ethos of this show. In your bio that you sent over, and by the way, I got that last minute because I did not send you through the system, by the way, so shame on me. I was talking with Jenny, your producer, trying to figure out how you got through the system without your bio. And then I realized that I'm the one who sent you the direct link. And so I apologize, Marielle, when you're listening to this. It was me who screwed it up.
You sound like me. I was literally just on a call from. If you're gonna blame someone, blame me. I probably went around the process thinking I was being efficient and messed it up.
It was totally me. So Marielle initially got the burn for it, and I was like, "How did this one make through this?" And then I was like, "Guess who effed it up? It was me." So
That's
I
who did it.
apologize. In your bio, anyhow, in your bio, you mentioned something about helping businesses grow while staying aligned with their purpose. What does that mean to you? What does alignment mean to you?
I think it's really easy, and I'm card carrying guilty of it, to go out of alignment, whether that's service oriented, actual physical services of your business oriented, purpose, forgetting that, and or just going off of, like you said, the squirrel thing, like that can very much happen with business owners. I was talking to a guy yesterday that was just starting out and his service lines were so all over the board and it was like very confusing to the consumer. And I was like, you've got to find your purpose and your passion and then double down in that, because when you're all over the board or you go against your passion or your purpose or your why, it doesn't yield the same results as when you're totally aligned with it. And it could be as simple as when I first started, it was like, I really love to support business owners. That's what I do. And sometimes I'll find myself like where we're getting maybe things that just don't align. I loved what you said about the freedom to pick your clients, right? You may go that way because that seems to be what's coming in and those are easy conversations, but you're hating it. You're hating every minute of it. It's not who you want to serve. It's not what you want to do. And you have to bring yourself back and be like, no, this is why I started this. I love serving business owners and I love helping them grow. And so that's what we try to, even when we're working with our clients, is coach them on that and talk through that so they don't get in those. And if you do, that's okay, course correct and get back to it. But really staying in that is just going to help you grow faster and you're going to enjoy it more. It's no fun to serve what you're not meant to serve.
100%. Send that scallywag over to me. That's what I do. Is I help people get their alignment and better understand how they show up in the world. So if you're struggling with them, send them over to me. This is one of my bones that I pick with myself early on and then everyone else is that There's this whole idea that we have to niche ourselves down into somebody else's predefined structure, right? I hate that. I've always hated it. As a photographer, people tell me that I should be focusing on only this or only that. I'm like, no, man, I really like doing all of these different types of things, and I refuse to niche down. But what I discovered in the process of refusing to niche down is that you don't have to niche down. You have to become the niche itself. And for me, becoming the niche is really clearly understanding, like you just said, who are you? What do you do best? What lights you up at the end of the day? What type of people do you really truly love working with? What value do you bring to the table? And then how can you crystallize all of that so that you can share that with the right type of people so that you can stay in the different modalities, if you will, but still make an impact, right? In terms of Nicole and like this idea of becoming the niche, if you had to look at your superpowers and all the things that make you who you are, I'm really good at this. I love doing this. I love working with these type of people. These are the things that light me up at the end of the day. This is what makes me continue and perpetuate the journey. What does that look like for you? What's that little superhero, super heroine bubble of Nicole Grinnell look like?
I think it's finding a solution to a problem. And I think I've had other businesses spin out of that too. So when you're working with, especially with so many entrepreneurs, they're going to be throwing things at you like, hey, do you know anybody that can do this? Have you ever done this? What do you think? And I don't know if it's the EA in me. I don't know if it's growing up in a small business where you just have to figure it out. But I have such a passion to find that solution. And it's actually what I say with my kids a lot, back to how you lead or kids, is they'll come to me with a problem and I'm like, think through the end goal. What's the end goal? The end goal is I have to make it to basketball practice at 7. Great. Figure out the steps to get there and get the solution. And that's truly who I am. So it has like mic'd up came out of that, right? We're hearing this problem. It's not really in staffing, but I've got to figure out a way to solve this for him. Like it's truly like in me to figure it out, whether it's I physically am doing it, I'm creating a company to do it, or I'm sending you a referral to get it done. But I think that our clients feel like they can lob pretty much anything over the fence. And if we can't do it, we're going to find a solution for you. So I think we are very solution oriented.
You are a process architect re-engineer.
There we go. That sounds way fancier than a figure it out.
It's so funny. You and I have so many similarities, and that's why I wanted to have you on the show. I worked in a family business as well. Just I don't know if you knew that. I'm one of 12 kids,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
and my dad conveniently taught us from home because I was like, bro, and looking back, I'm like, bro, you taught us from home so we could be your slave labor for the
Yeah.
first half of our life because there was nothing else beyond school. I never went to school, man. I literally worked in your warehouse night and day unloading tractor trailers, literally like massive tractor trailers. My job was to unload these pallets. My dad had a wine importing business, and me and my brothers would literally spend 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day unloading pallet after pallet after
Oh,
wine, inventorying it, putting it up in nice little structures in the warehouse, binding it so it wouldn't fall. Like I was literally, you're gonna laugh. True story. My dad would get arrested for this if he was still alive. I was operating a tractor forklift at the age of 6, literally driving a forklift in and out of a warehouse onto a tractor trailer, backing it up, and literally stacking 10 stacks high of wine cases on pallets. So, true story. So, I
I mean,
love what you. Yeah, so I love what you just said. We were thrown in the crucible early on, and you had to figure shit out, or it was a beating at the end of the day.
yeah.
So, totally get where you're coming from on that space, and I really appreciate it. And there's no way in fuck you would be able to get away with any of that today, but nonetheless. So anyhow, I digress. Ooh, squirrel. In
No,
terms
I
of
love it.
yeah, in terms of values, because we've talked about this whole idea of stepping into your power and the superpowers, are there values or beliefs that you refuse to compromise on no matter what the situation is? And what, if so, what are those?
First and foremost, I would say honesty, and then just truly treating clients, treating team members how you would want to be treated. I'm a big believer in just you're going to have conflict, right? You're dealing with, especially in our world, you're dealing with people from top to bottom, right? But I've got to be able to be comfortable and feel okay with how I'm behaving. And I say this a lot to our clients when, let's say, a staffing situation doesn't go right, is I am in the world of people. I would love to say I have a crystal ball and this hire is going to be amazing and you're never going to have problems. We're going to do everything we can to vet that. But it may happen and I can't control that. But what I can control is my service to you. And so
Mm.
how can we make this better? Is it finding you another hire? Is it course correcting, or helping with anything in the future? So I feel like as long as we're trying to serve our clients, serve our team members to the best of our ability, you're going to minimize bad relationships, right? I hear of other staffing firms, not to degrade anyone, but they'll say, oh yeah, the contract was this, and the guy at 91 days, they fired him. And that was their contract. It was 90 days. That kills me. I'm like, I would feel such guilt towards that client. Like they paid me real money. They needed a team member. So I'm going to go back to I don't care if the contract said 90 days and it's 91, right? Like I am going to go and be above and beyond to help and serve them. And I think we're just so service oriented. We want people to walk away with a great experience. I understand contracts are there for a reason, but there's also a human side behind of it. And that's a real business owner that paid real money to have a real hire, and it didn't go well. And it's someone I recommended. So I need to come in and help where I can with that.
I love the integrity and everything you say. It's really phenomenal. It's an interesting conversation to have, though, around the blurring lines, especially on the personal and professional intersections. I believe in X, but I'm working with a client who doesn't hold that same value. So how do I show up diplomatically, but at the same time? And I recently ran up against this with a client of mine that we have now recent parted ways, and we just could not philosophically align on some very basic tenets of mine, which is honesty, integrity, and to be kind to each other.
Yeah.
And we finally had to just agree that this is probably not going to be the best relationship, because if you can't be kind in just basic conversations, then this is just going to unfold into a whole variety of different areas. And I wasn't always at this position. Like I couldn't always do this where I understood who I was in the world and how I showed up in the marketplace. And by taking the time to, and this was experientially, of course,
Mhm.
this was experientially because I've had a lot of time doing this, but I'm very clear on who I am and the value that I bring to the table.
Mhm.
And I'm also very clear on the morals that I bring to the table and where my lines in the sand are. And so I look back and I reflect early in my career. It was like I'd take on anybody just to make a buck. And I'm no longer that way, but that was a process. So when you look at your trajectory and sort of your values, and you're talking to new entrepreneurs and the stuff that you do, what's some advice that you would give them on understanding who you are and really clearly being able to articulate your values so that you can stay in your lane, if you will, and show up and add value, but at the same time not compromise the things you believe in?
Yeah, I think being really clear, especially even like with your team, the individual that I worked with before as an executive, I remember him telling me when I first started, hey, you're going to see a lot of my life, personally and professionally. If you ever see something that you feel is not honest, does not have integrity, is unkind, I want you to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
So having that environment with your team, first and foremost, and then just staying true to that. And one thing I learned pretty early on is when a client or a team member or anyone that you're coming across in business has such a violent or large reaction to something, right, where you can't put your hands on why they would be that upset over X problem, or they're jumping to really drastic consequences, results, whatever that is, there's something else going on there. And sometimes it has nothing to do with you. And so if you're finding that a client, like I'm a big believer, like I will not discuss things over email. If we're going to have a conversation, we're going to have a conversation. We're not going to shoot nasty grams back to each other. And so if I'll get a nasty gram from a client, I'll say, absolutely, Bob, I'm so sorry to hear that was your experience. Why don't you give me a call? Here's my cell phone.
Mm.
90% of the time, they don't call you. They don't like, that's not what they want. They just want to be angry. And when you realize that, then you can go, oh, this actually doesn't have anything to do with me, because a reasonable person, if you're wanting a solution, wants to get on and find a solution. So if you're just getting nasty grammar, it's no, and I'll say this for my team too. If you get that, shut it down. Tell them that
Yeah.
they can call me directly. And most of the time they don't. And
Yeah.
they may send back an email and say, you know what, then I cancel. That's okay, because that's probably not someone we want to go
Yeah.
much further in business with.
Well
So
said.
as long as you know your behavior is with integrity and honesty and showing up to serve, you can't control others' reactions or behavior. And you just have to let that go. And it's hard because I'm the kind that's like, why would they react that way? What did I do? How can I help them? I don't understand this. But this may have nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Nothing. And I
And
am
you,
just a punching bag.
I'm not going to be your whipping boy. That's what my pace. I believe everything we do is a collaboration, whether I'm the client or not the client. Sorry, whatever we do, it's a collaboration. And so it's really important that the people you work with understand that we're here to we're here to serve you. We're here to provide value to you. But at the same time, I only grow through your growth. And if there's things that are like off kilter on that, then there's going to be no growth at all. What are some of your lines in the sand as a human? What are
Oh,
some of the things that you refuse to negotiate on?
I mean, for sure, anything dishonest or, anything. In fact, say this even in our kind of like team bylaws, whatever you want to say, is like, I will give grace upon grace for mistakes. You can royally mess up around here, and it'll be like, okay, what can we learn about it? Lying or deceptive behavior, like, we're done. I don't, there's nothing else I can do there, right? And I'm not talking about mistakes or confusion. I'm talking about truly interest to be deceptive. I think that would be like first and foremost. And then just unkindness, like we're all a team. Gossip is a big thing to me. I'm like, no, we're not like, and I'm an Enneagram 8, so I have to like know realities are realities. I know every man is. I'm just like weird like that. But
No, not at all. I do Enneagram as part of one of my tests. I rarely encounter eights, oddly enough.
you really count women eights, but so you know what I'm saying. I need to know like where we stand is where we stand, and there's
Yeah.
not like a side conversation going on of something else happening. I would rather you tell me to my face, I hate this place. I want out of this. I can't stand you. I would appreciate that more than smiling and stabbing me in the back, right? And so I think gossip can breed a lot of that within a team. And so, if we have a conflict or a concern about a team member, we're gonna talk with them about that, and we're gonna go to them and speak about that. So I think those are probably my biggest lines in the sand, pet peeves as far as like internal team and even friendships, honestly.
Mm. You've leaned in a lot on communication and a lot of the things you said without saying it. I think communication is literally one of the pinnacles of relationship building. And if you can't foster a healthy communication, whether it's with your romantic partner or your business partner or your collaborative partners, again, I can't read your mind, man. If there's something you need from me, just tell me. I'm really intuitive, but I can't read your mind. If you can just tell me what you need, I can respond accordingly, or I can tell you that I can't respond accordingly. And I think that simple little piece is one of the biggest, most critical elements in any aspect of business, relationship, partnerships, whatever. But for whatever reason, so many people suffer from it. Why do people not take the time to learn how to communicate better?
I think it's uncomfortable for people. I found that it's very easy for me, and I don't know if it's an eight thing, but they don't want conflict. They don't. But then what happens is they're festering on it. I'll tell you, I think some of the most dangerous people are not dangerous, but like in communication world.
No, they're dangerous.
Yeah. I'm like, they're not like dangerous physically, but in communication terms are like nines, like peacemakers, because they'll tell you everything is fine. And then they'll blow a gasket one day. And you're like, what just happened? I could have solved this 20 steps ago. So I think knowing your people too. In fact, yesterday we were doing kind of team member check-ins, and I do have one team member that is a nine. And I'm like, okay, I know my nines. So talk to me. Like, how are you feeling? What can I be supporting you better with? Like, how are things going? So if you know somebody maybe on your team is not a good communicator, try to at least open up a space to have those conversations. Now, there's only so much you can do. You can't beat it out of them, right? But if you're trying to foster an environment to say, hey, this is the time for you to say XYZ, or I would like this, or I need this support, like let's at least open those spaces up, and hopefully that will help that. But I love communicating. I say a lot, you can't have a complaint without a conversation. Like, don't just sit and whine that Bob is driving you crazy. Go talk to Bob. Let's try to
Mhm.
figure this out.
For those of you who are listening and don't know what we're referencing when Nicole talks about eights and nines and all those
Yeah.
things, the Enneagram test is a personality assessment tool that a lot of different types of people use to, it's based upon nine distinct personality types. And each of those nine personality types, the numbers that you just referenced, they reflect specific patterns of thinking and feeling and behaving. And they're all rooted in these core motivations of fear and desire. And so you take this test, it takes about an hour if you're doing a real test, and it helps you define like your purpose and your number that you represented through those characteristics I just said. It's a growth tool, it's a holistic approach that it takes. It's a really powerful tool if you can find the right test to take, and it shares some really interesting insights about yourself and how you show up in the world. And as I referenced, I actually use that. I actually paid and worked with a psychologist to develop my own metric around this. So I actually take my clients through a very similar Enneagram type test so I can better understand who I'm working with and how they show up in the world. So I love that you're both that we're both talking about that. In terms of your superpower, and I know we're running out of time here and I know you have to go soon.
ahead.
But I have a couple of questions I still want to get to. In terms of your superpower, this sort of idea of under delivering and under promising and over delivering and integrity and honesty. When you think about these superpowers in terms of how you show up in the world, are there anything that you would have never been able to foresee that was a result of sort of some of these things that you executed using these superpower skills of yours that you would have never anticipated? That you look back and you're like, holy shit, that really was because of how I delivered what I deliver best.
Oh, honestly, just what comes to mind is even just having the business or starting. It was never in my mind to open a business. That alone, and just like the grit that it took to figure it out, connect people, find people, that's probably the biggest thing I would think. But then I have found, and my husband and I talk a lot about this because we're constantly like, we are not the smartest people in the room. There are way smarter people in many rooms than us. And but there is just something about, and he also grew up in a family business, about hustle and determination and grit, just truly. And I think it's an undervalued thing. And sometimes we'll be like, man, I don't really know why this. He recently took another job that's something he honestly never thought he would. He's in a C-level, very high position. We're very excited for him. He's probably about 15 years ahead of even industry standards on getting this. And we're looking at each other like, we're dumb. Like, I don't really know why we are getting these kind of opportunities. But I think it is. We lead with honesty. We do what we say we're going to do. Half the time now, a talent just showing up has put you 50% ahead.
Oh my
We
God.
don't complain. We're hard workers. And that is very undervalued. You can teach me how to use a widget, right? But am I going to be honest, or can you depend on me? Am I going to do what you told me to do? Am I going to come through? And if I can't, I'm going to tell you and try to offer a solution. And so I think those things like people really undervalue. And it's, man, if there's one thing I would tell young people, it's go the extra mile, go the extra mile. And I promise you it will pay off.
Girlfriend, you be speaking my jam. I coach my daughter's high school lacrosse team. I know nothing about lacrosse, by the way. Just want to put that out there. But I am a lifelong athlete. I've played sports up to the college level. So I've always been around sports and I do a lot of coaching and whatnot through my daughters as they've grown up. Anyway, I was literally having this speech yesterday with my kids on the team, not my kids, my lacrosse team. And they got their asses kicked last season. Like some goals like 20-0 type thing.
Oh,
And I
wow.
and I told them I was like, we may not have the best athlete, we may not have the best lacrosse players on this team, but I can promise you one thing: if you're going to play in this program with me, we are going to use hustle. We are going to use determination. We are going to use teamwork. We're going to hold each other accountable. And most importantly, we are going to have grit. We will not be beat 20-0. We are going to harass people. We're going to out hustle people. We're going to outwork people. We are going to literally annoy the shit out of every team we play just basis on that basis alone. And we talked about parenting. That is one of the things. If you met my kids, they are hustlers. They are honest. They are gritty. And I will put any one of them in an alley with any other kid, and I guarantee my kid is gonna draw some blood. And I'm very proud of that. And you can call that a masculine energy, you can call that whatever you want, but I wholeheartedly believe with you that people, the true assets of humans are the fact that we are innovative and we can be gritty, and that is what makes someone successful. And so it's really, really compelling to hear you say some of those things. In the last parts of our call, we've talked about all the amazing things that you are, and you truly are amazing. But it would be remiss if we didn't talk about some of the challenges that we suffer from and some of our blind spots and some of our shadows, if you will. So one of the things I've spent a shit ton of time on the last, I'm going to say 4 years of my life is how I show up in the world in my shadows, right? What are the things that I don't do so well? What are the things that are maybe based on past trauma? Or what are some of the things like my dad making me drive a forklift at 3 o'clock in the morning because at 6 years old? There's a lot of trauma associated with
Yeah.
that. And so I was like, what are some of your traumas and your things and your blind spots that you really that you feel like you've spent some time working on?
It's funny because I joke, I'm not, because I would say in my personal life, I'm more of an Enneagram 7. I love to have fun. I'm very like, let's go here, let's go here. Like I'm very, but in work, I'm an 8. And so I joke, I'm like, I don't know, like it's a chicken and egg thing. Did I become an 8 because of my environment, or was I always this way? But I think a blind spot with an 8, particularly, and with me, is I don't have a lot of coddling in me. So
Mm.
when you're a child,
Like the
working.
like the nurturing type stuff, you mean?
Yeah, which is weird because I'm very nurturing with like my kids, but when it comes to work and adults, I don't know, you figure it out. Like you figure it out, right?
Got it. I just
So
want to make sure the distinction what you were saying there. Okay.
yeah, so it's very hard. Like I would say I'm a really bad trainer because I've never been trained. I literally was like, I don't know, here you go. You're running this office now. Okay, I'm running it all. I'll figure out how to hack into the system. I don't know. So I have almost like I'm being dropped off on a desert island and I have to learn how to make a society out of it. In fact, my friends will joke like, they would joke sometimes about, would you come visit me if I was in prison or whatever? And they would say, oh, we wouldn't go visit Nicole because she'd just be running the prison by the end of it. So I have that environment. And I think the blind spot of that is people need some of that. They need training. They need the nurturing. They need the like, um, coddling is a bad word. They need some of that hand holding or whatever. And that just doesn't come naturally to me. I have to make myself make time. Even like what I was saying about having some space to communicate. Hey, just go head down. If you need something, yell at me. But if not, let's just keep trucking. And that's not how everybody operates.
Yeah.
And so taking time to really, and it's not because you don't care, you are just in this like mode. And especially as business owners, I think we can get this way. Listen, I'm just trying to keep the wheels on this bus. Like I'm not blind to you, but I haven't thought about that because I'm like trying to make payroll or I'm like fighting XYZ fire. But again, back to that perception that we talked at the beginning, employees don't see the shoes that you're in. And to some extent, they're never going to, and they shouldn't have to, right? That's your role. But we also can't be blind to it and know that they have needs and we need to be attuned to it. That is probably my biggest struggle or shadow that you're saying that I have to be very calculated and mindful to make time for.
Mm. Especially as a parent, and I wholeheartedly agree with you, but one of the things that have had to learn, especially because I was a single parent most of my children's life, is that masculine feminine balance and being able to bring both of them to your children, especially as a father. And
Yep.
so that's we have similar and others. We also share some similarities in the shadow work in terms of your shadow work and in terms of your superpower, in terms of this legacy that you're building. And we're all building a legacy, right? What do you want to call it, a legacy or whatever it is? It's there's something that you're building right now that's had a ripple effect on society, right? You've
Mhm.
changed people's lives, you've changed the trajectory of individuals and the things that you do. What is the one thing in this legacy building you're doing that you hope to be remembered by?
Ooh, that's a great. I hope that people are, some people say this to me sometimes, and I hope it's true because one thing, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I love to see people succeed. Like I truly love it. Almost to the point that like I can't quite understand jealousy or envy because I think if you want it, then go get it. So when I see other people succeed, it makes me so happy. And I have heard people say to me, when I'll talk with you, by the time I walk away from a conversation with you, I feel like I can do anything. And
Mm.
my kids will say sometimes, don't tell my mom like the dream you want to do. She's going to make it happen for you. So it's
That's a bad thing.
yeah, but it's sometimes people are like, oh, I'd love to do this. I'm like, let's do it. Let's make a plan. What do you want to do?
Mm.
And they're kind of like, I was just saying it. And I'm like, no, you want it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to back myself off because people do just like to daydream. But I'm like, well, why daydream? Let's make it a reality. But I think I would love for people to feel like whatever they wanted or were looking for, or when we had conversations, that I was a cheerleader of it and
Mm.
that I wanted to support it. And I think that's why I do love the podcasting because it's, oh, I know someone that you would really love. And I love to be a connector. I love to be a cheerleader. And I love seeing people succeed. It like truly, in fact, I went to Magnolia with a friend, the Joanna Gaines thing. And it was so funny going with her because I went in and I was like, this is awesome. Look at what this woman has built. This is amazing. I'm so happy for her. And she went in and was like, I feel like a failure. I've done nothing. And so I want to be a cheerleader of people. I love to see people succeed and any part that I can have in that, whether it's giving them a job opportunity or connecting professional people or just cheerleading and brainstorming ideas with them. Like I would love to be known for that.
Mm. You're very optimistic in your point of view, I suspect.
I do tend to see, my husband would say, he's in insurance, so he sees the other side of the world, and I see the rainbows and sunshine. So we probably balance each other out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just, what's the worst that can happen? And my husband will be like, I can name 100 worst that can happen based off things I've actually seen. So
He's like that show with Ben Stiller and
yeah,
Jennifer
a hundred
Aniston.
percent.
Along
Along
came
comes
Polly.
Polly.
You're
Yeah,
you're Polly and he's Ben
a
Stiller.
hundred percent. A
That's so
hundred
funny.
percent.
That's a great movie.
It is.
We've talked a lot about perception, and perception is reality, and we've talked a lot about it from a read your label outside the jar type of point of view. What would you say to yourself if you were in a conversation with yourself? What would
Oh,
you talk about, and what things would you give yourself advice on? Like when you just think about who
that's a
you
good
are rubbing
question.
up against yourself, what would you say to yourself right now?
Ooh, right now, I would say to myself that you've got to remember who you are. I think sometimes there are time periods in life, personally or professionally, where you can get down, whether it's situations that have happened to you, whether it's life that's happening to you. And it may cause yourself to alter your worldview, alter how you see yourself. But remember who you are. Remember truly at the core, it doesn't matter what other people are saying about you, what our perception is happening. If you know you and you know your intentions and your heart and your integrity, you sometimes you got to really stick to that, and that can be the only thing that you can stick to because outside influences can be trying to tell you something else.
Mm. And how would you respond to yourself?
Probably like that's really hard. What was that? How did I get there? How do
Who
I
the
get back there?
who the F are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
There are, I imagine in your interactions, especially in the podcast world, that you work with a lot of new entrepreneurs. What is the one thing, if you could give them one piece of advice and one piece only, the one thing that you should be doing right now as a new entrepreneur to build your business?
I would say yes to every meeting. If you are new, say yes to every meeting. You have no idea what can come of those.
Hmm.
If you
I,
go into entrepreneurship with any kind of like ego or that's below me, especially I don't have that now, but especially when you're starting out, that's gonna bite you in the tail every time. So say
oh
yes
yeah.
to every meeting.
I love that. And my piece of advice I tell everyone is build your relationships.
Yeah.
Build your relationships.
We're saying the same thing. Yep.
Bar none, it is the single, and I did not know this early on. It doesn't matter if you view them as competition. It doesn't matter if you think that you're better than them. Build relationships. I cannot tell you how many referrals, new business, new opportunities have come from just the relationships that I've built through podcasts, through casual conversations at the gym. I'm literally sitting in the dry sauna half naked 2 weeks ago, struck up a conversation with this dude who seemed like he was a little bit out of kilter. Turns out he was just having a really bad day. We ended up going to get coffee.
Aw.
Yeah, dude runs a business. He's going through a divorce right now. Dude runs a business. He helps small businesses with lending. I have a client right now who's looking for lending. I was able to put the two of them in touch. Literally made like their day, made his day. Now that the guy and I are friends, we're playing basketball together this weekend. It's just like the things that come from this, and who knows where that may go. But the fact that I just literally took the time to have a conversation with him, half naked in the sauna, was. If you ever want to have a conversation with somebody and have to be who you really are, dude, it's in a sauna half naked because there is nothing else between the two of you but like realness. And so, anyway, going off on a sidebar, but all right.
I had a version of that. I went to a conference in Miami, literally went for the day to the ocean, swimsuit, like you're going to a beach or whatever, wound up talking to this person, and we realized we're at the same conference. It turned into a sales conversation. And I was like, I've never had a sales conversation in a bathing suit. I'm going to be honest. This is very vulnerable,
It's
but
very
you know what? It
vulnerable.
is what
Yeah.
it is right now.
It's
But she's
very,
great, and we still keep in touch. And so,
it's
yeah, I
very,
totally agree.
yeah, I love it. Nicole, this has been a great conversation. I knew it would be. Thank you for sharing your journey with us and your insights and your ability to this whole idea of blending personal values with your professional successes and all the things that you're doing. It's really cool. And it was very refreshing to get your take on stuff. I appreciate it.
For having me. I really enjoyed it. It was a great hour spent today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I agree. And where's the best way people can find you right now if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, I would say follow us on our Mic'd Up. So it's mic'dupbooking.com, and you can reach out, see our services, or just connect with our team.
And what about social media?
So it's all Mic'd Up Booking. So
Okay.
yeah, everything,
Okay.
Instagram, Facebook, all the usuals.
Okay. Brilliant. Brilliant. All right, then. Thank you for your time. It's been a great show.
Thanks
And
so much.
I'm going to put you in the green room and we'll chat in a little bit about that.
Perfect. Sounds good.
I always love guests like Nicole, people who are willing to come on and have real conversations with depth and meaning and share their insights and my button's undone, and their view of the world and their philosophies and how they think and what makes them tick and all those things. It's really important to understand who you are because who you are is a direct reflection of how you show up in the world, and how you show up in the world includes your business, and that includes the relationships and the people that you interact with and how you add value. So it's really important to better understand who you are. And that's the whole point of this show. So for our listeners that were taking the time to go the full hour with us, thank you for sharing your time with me. I know you have opportunities and choices when it comes to podcasts, literally millions of them. And I appreciate you giving us your ear for the hour. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, please go to my website, thebrandstoryteller.com, navigate over to the podcast section. I believe it's under my toolbox, and you can apply to be a guest there. If you know someone who would be a good guest, send them the link, and just love to get together with you and hear your story and your brand and how you're showing up in the world. Anyhow, don't forget to follow, comment, share all the things that you do to help me grow this show. And thank you for being you and for listening. Have a wonderful day. I will see you next time.